I'm actually very proud to see that we have a world-class defense academy that not only trains Nigerians from different aspects of our defense machinery, but others from around the world come to our school to benefit from it. It shows me, and I've seen the discipline in the environment of this school, and I can't not but tell you that I'm so impressed. I'm proud. Else that knows me says I'm an optimistic and addicted Nigerian. And there are many moments where that presents a challenge, but there are also many moments where you're proud of that. This is the only country I have, even though my mother is Cameroonian, but I'm 100% Nigerian. And so I am confident that we might have some hiccups sometimes, but I know that we'll find our way and we'll arrive at destination. For us to do that, we'll need every single one of us working together, using our own talents and our resources to make our country manifest the greatness that it truly has within it. And I'm confident that one way or the other, as we all put our resources to play, we will achieve our goal. Initially, I wondered about the topic. I thought, okay, it's a defense academy. What business do they have worrying about the economy enough to make this the keynote speech? But then I did come to understand that in reality, the issue of defense and security of a nation has many factors at play and is beyond the guns and the battles. It's more strategic, it's clearly proactive, and in being proactive in handling the issues that can lead to war, you need to have taken care of many factors from the onset. And the economy of a nation has a direct impact on the level or the state of the security of that nation. You know, when people are well fed and they're happy and satisfied, and they have a woman beside them and children around their table, they don't think very much about fighting. But in the midst of scarcity and need and desperation, the minds of people wander, and people begin to imagine different ways to survive as they will qualify it. And at that point, values and integrity and character is set aside, and men will be men in many ways. With all due apologies, you know, a lot of war is started by men and not the women. So I'm also surprised that there are not many women in the class, because you obviously need a lot more women in the military academy, because if you don't have the diversity you need at the table, you will only get the view of war or solutions from the perspective of the men. And that makes you a one-eyed man. Because the reality is, no matter how much you know, I think men and women are created differently. We come with different skills to the table, and the way we view things is different. We need both at the table to get a 360-degree view, and that view will affect our decision-making process. So I will encourage the commandant and all the team that are involved to do a lot more work of engaging young women from secondary school level and educating them on the career path within the military and enlightening them in terms of the opportunities that they can find and the way they can serve their country within the defense system and infrastructure as well. And I think we'll be a better country, or the nations that are involved will be better in many ways. That's me speaking for the girls. I'm sure you expect that. Now, my assignment here is to speak about economic diversification and national development. Now, the question you need to ask yourself concerning our country is, before we found oil, we were a nation. And we were a promising nation that had a lot to offer the world. We had economic activities within our country that was as diverse as we have multiple tribes and regions within the country. because we explored the talents and the resources of different parts of our country. And in applying that, we built the resources of our nation. And if you look at where we are now, you would realize that there are a lot of things that were built from the past that are still the things that are sustaining us in some areas. But as we found this wonder product that is called oil, we abandoned a lot of stuff because it looked too easy, too cheap, and it made too much money. Unfortunately, we didn't think too far into the future. First, every resource is exhaustible. That's one. Two, times and seasons change. What is important, what is key, what is in high demand yesterday might not be tomorrow. Think about yourself. You were young one time, every single person in this room. You were able to run, to lift weights, to do stuff. Some of the things you could do when you went to military training the first time, some of you cannot really do them now, if we're truthful. Because time and season has passed, and change and transformation has taken place. And we didn't look too far into the future to realize that the opportunity of a temporary, high-returning asset, we should apply it in a way that we will maximize the other opportunities within our country for the time and the season when that product might not be there. Or in this case, we still have oil, but the demand for oil and the nature of energy generation around the world has changed and is changing. The nations that were key customers to us before, who needed our oil, and that made us very rich because we were selling at high volumes, have found alternative solutions to the oil. Because as they were buying from us, they were trying to find how not to need us anymore. And sadly, we didn't think about the day that they will not really need us as much. Well, the day is here. As much as, in my mind, we have no oil anymore. That is how I view things in Nigeria. And I think that for all of us, in a way, it would help us to think that we have assets within this nation, beyond oil and what it represents. How do we maximize all of those assets for our economic development in a way that we're able to keep our nation safe and united and intact? Some of the internal issues that we have, strife between tribes and regions, is economically driven. Because when people begin to fight about resource control or factors of production or benefit allocation of resources and all of that, the politicians will scale it up as well in many ways, in everybody trying to control territories for power and resource. For you as a military, as a defense academy, it's important to understand that the strategic planning of the economy of a nation does not even start from the economic activity itself. First, it starts from the people. In our case, we have a lot of people. We're blessed, but you see, our same blessing in terms of population can become a big curse. Because at the rates that we're going, we're projected to be the third or the fourth largest nation in the world in barely 30 years. And we don't seem to have found the right formula for birth control yet. Because people are still having 5, 7, and people are still marrying 3, 4, 5 wives. And so the number of children can continue to increase. Now, that can be an asset if we have a strategy for managing it. Otherwise, that presents a challenge for those who need to manage how to keep this country at peace. It starts from our education. Do we have an effective national education plan that ensures that every single child that is born in this country has access to education? Why is that important? An educated, enlightened mind is an asset in nation building. When you're discussing issues or making policies, your citizens must be able to understand in order to work with you and patiently allow the time for the emergence of the issues that you're talking about. when other people try to sell them wrong notions or wrong issues, if they have no education and no capacity to comprehend the issues, you already have a problem. And if we have a large population that is uneducated, unenlightened, and therefore unempowered, then the possibility of having miscreants and a population that can be misused for national security issue arises. You know, when I finished university in Ife, I was sent to Kano to serve. My youth service was in Kano. And I used to live off Zoo Road somewhere in Kano. And one of the things that was a shock to me as a girl who was coming from Lagos, had gone to Ife for university, was the Almanjiri children. I could not understand how so many young children that I felt should be cared for and provided for were wandering around on the street by themselves. Barely clothes on their back, shivering in the cold, carrying dirty plates on their head, looking for any food they could eat. And because of that, sometimes they would just pick up a stone. If they saw a girl wearing jeans, I came from Lagos, wearing jeans and a t-shirt, didn't seem like anything to me. But then sometimes they would pick up a stone and start throwing it at you. Well, I always face them back as a way to protect myself. But that's not even the point. The real point is that it was obvious to see that we had a problem that was building for the future. It was my NYC project. I actually wrote a project to the NYC to say, look, this cannot remain, that we need to find corporate organizations that will adopt the children in an adoption program and fund their education or providing for them so that they could be able-bodied, valuable assets and citizens of the country. NYC is only 12 months or less. So you do it and you go. And if the problem isn't solved, it remains. So many years after, as we allowed a situation that makes all of us fail as a nation in terms of taking care of our children, as we allowed it to fester, it resulted in some of the security problems that we have now. Now, it's not a Kano problem. It's a situation that Lagos had area boys factor. Who were area boys? Young men who were uneducated, unempowered, maybe some were on drugs, but there were miscreants around the streets of Lagos. And they made the life of able-bodied, hard-working people a nightmare. It was a major security risk to be in traffic because you knew you could be attacked at any time by these guys. So when the least of us isn't taken care of economically, starting from the process of education, the best of us is put at risk. And therefore, it isn't just if only for enlightened self-interest. We have a responsibility to have a system, a national development plan, and an economic environment that caters from the least of us to the best of us. Otherwise, the best of us will not survive. And this is the truth. As we had all this xenophobic issue in South Africa of recent, I'm sure you all heard of what developed in Lagos. Because as people just got up in certain areas that had high population of people that didn't do much, and took over the neighborhoods around the Lekki axis, destroyed economic assets of hard-working people. Because some of the assets that were destroyed were owned by Nigerians within premises that were defined as owned by South African companies. In most cases, it's actually just a franchise of the brand. The whole investment was a Nigerian investment. And all the companies that were destroyed were Nigerian companies. And jobs were destroyed for other people, apart from wealth. So, in reality, the Defense Academy is right in its thinking that the issue of the economy and the development of the nation is key to its ability to develop strategic plans to be able to keep the country safe. And it starts, like I said, from making sure that we have an effective education system that educates every single Nigerian that wants to go to school. By law, no child that is born in this country should be allowed to be kept out of school before they at least finish secondary school. So that if after secondary school, you can at least go and train in a skill, go and learn a trade, you're educated, you can comprehend information, you can make choices. We don't need everybody to go to university because every sector, every level of economic development does not require a college degree in order to be effective. I've been introduced as the chairman of First Bank, which it's a great institution that is woven into the fabric of this nation. There's no other institution in Nigeria that is 125 years old. First Bank is the only such institution in West Africa. So I am proud to hold that office, and it's a Nigerian institution. So as a nation, we are producing great institutions that are lasting the length of time. So that's a great thing and something of pride for me and for our institution. I believe it should be for every Nigerian. But beyond that, I'm an entrepreneur. I started my first business between the age of 25 to 26. And in the last 30 years, I built a manufacturing group, which is my core business, both in furniture and in security systems, incidentally. Because when you go to the entrance of those banks, those systems that you walk through, that's us. We introduced it into this country in 1994. And we're still the biggest and the best in the industry. So I have a sense of security. I just didn't disclose that. Because those are factors I had to learn in developing that business and knowing the factors that are at play and all the information and all the way it has to be managed. But the point I am making with that is, when you look at different parts of the country and how things can flare up, you will understand why diversification is key. We need to look at our country not just from one view, because different parts of the country represents different opportunities. We need to find how to have inclusive and widespread development across the country. Why? It also prevents concentration. Because when you have people migrating from different parts of the country to concentrate in only a few parts of the country, that in itself has a security challenge. Because in most cases, where there's a lot of rural migration into cities, you end up with urban slums, overcrowding, and economic challenges because there isn't enough opportunity for everybody that wants to live in one city. Let's take Lagos, for example. What is the landmass of Lagos? How is the population of Lagos 23 to 24 million, if they even know the exact numbers? Sometimes, when you drive through some areas and you see the sheer concentration of human beings, you know that if one person just says, hey, there could be trouble. Because everybody could start running without even knowing the source of it. And also, there's so many people struggling for limited resources within a limited space. So, structuring our economic development along the line of the opportunities and the resources that are available in different parts of our country, in order to have a better spread of our population, is strategic to keeping the country safe. Because then everybody knows people in their neighborhood. In Lagos, do you really know your neighbors? Most times not. Most times you can't separate the decent guys from the miscreants in the society. And yet, a community is the first line of defense in terms of managing its own security. Their ability to monitor and have a sense of everyone within their community so they know when things change, when strange people come in, and they have a sense of the activities that are going on around them, and they can act, react, or work with the authorities in order to manage it. But in a situation where you have such high concentration of people in small spaces, because of lack of distribution of development and opportunities across the country, we increase the risk of sustainable, secured environments within our country. So educating our people is key. concentrating on developing, having a more even development across our nation, along the line of the opportunities that are available. In some cases, you don't even need to have what you call the enabling environment in the particular place. If you take a needed business to a location, people will follow it. Because at the end of the day, people follow opportunity. If you decide that we're going to set up this defense college, not in Abuja, but in Kutuwenji, because of this college, accommodation would have to be built. People that sell food that want to feed the people who come to the college will emerge around it. Economic activities will develop. Tailors will come. Carpenters will come. Shoemakers will come. Service providers of different sorts will come. Women who make hairdressing and all, because your wives will need attention and services and stuff like that. Providers of services to the college. That's how economic activities develop. I'll tell you the story of Chief Adeojo. He's the chairman of Toyota Nigeria. As a good Nigerian, he invested in building a university in his village, Ilara Mokin. It's somewhere between Akure and another in Ekiti, but you almost think that it's Ondo State. But it's actually Ekiti State, I think. It's a little sleepy village in the middle of nowhere. Absolutely sleepy village in the middle of nowhere. But he went back to that village and built Elizade University. Earlier this year, I was their graduation speaker, and it was the very first time I was going there. And it was amazing to see that before you got there, apart from the main road, all the other suburbs were small villages that were sleeping. But off the main road as you turn off, going into Ilaramokin, there's some little towns before then, but obviously the road all the way became a fully tarred road. Why did that development come? Because for you to have access to the university, they have to make sure that the road is developed and that it works. Otherwise, students and parents will not come. And then, as you have a whole community of university with thousands of students, lecturers, providers, in and out different programs, the economic activity that is necessary to support the university moved into the neighborhood. What does that mean? Ilara Mokin, because of one citizen of the village who decided to come and make the investment there and not in Lagos or in Abuja or in Kano or in Kaduna, turned a sleepy rural village into a town that I now know the name very well. I have managed to get there, otherwise I might never have been to Ilara Mokin, and I'm sure every child that is in that university or their family might not have been there except if they come from around that neighborhood. All I'm saying is, when we have distributed economic development across our country, we actually improve the lives of the people, but we also improve our opportunity to manage the stability and the security of our nation. Because all the professors and everybody that works there would otherwise have been somewhere else in another major city. But now they've become part of raising up the life of the people in that community in the name of providing education. An educated population is an asset to a nation. Now, let me take another value from our education in terms of our diversification. When you have as many people as we have, and you do not on your own have enough resource to absorb them, which is where we are now. And most of the challenges you can have with security emanates from young people. 65% of our population is under 35. That's a national asset because it's able-bodied working class people. But it's also a national problem if you don't engage them. Meanwhile, we're sending them to universities with promises that all you need to have is to have a certificate. Once you come out, you'll have a better life. Sometimes their parents have sold every asset to send the child through university with the hope that that child would have a better life and take care of them. But in reality, we're not building enough opportunities that can absorb the number of people we're turning out of our institutions. So we have two options. Turn our people into export assets. You know, people keep saying, oh, Nigerians are migrating to this or that. Have you checked the sources of our revenue and the ways we generate income as a nation? Do you know what percentage of it is from money repatriated by Nigerians in diaspora? Ask India. It's good. The ambassador of India is here. If they give you their numbers, you'll be fascinated by the amount of money that comes from Indians in diaspora, which effectively affects the growth and development of the economy because it makes capital available within the economy and also goes back to help family members within, and the life of everybody is lifted up. When you have 200 million people, Nigerians are smart. Nigerians are dynamic. Nigerians are fast-thinking. If you give them the right opportunity and the right engagement, they will produce results for you. Which is why education is important. But it's not just sending people to school. It's strategically educating our people in a way that they become assets that we can export. That means that we have a strategic plan. We have international pipelines and network, and I'm glad that there are many people from different other nations that are part of us today. That we have signed agreements with different nations, identifying the areas of need. There are nations that need manpower because they don't have people. But we have enough. We have more than enough. Knowing exactly where the manpower requirement is. Signing agreements with different nations to send manpower to them, whether through private sector development or through government diplomatic agreements and all of that. Training our people with skills and talents in those areas where they are required. And then having the alliances and the agreements that allows us on a program, 3 years working program. 6 years working program. We had some of those in the past. There are countries in West Africa that we used to send the judges to. There are countries in West Africa that we used to have volunteer schemes that we send staff to. If there's a time that we need a lot of labor exportation, it's now. Why? We have a lot of able-bodied young men and women who are frustrated. I'm sorry, I'm very active with my hands. Who are frustrated even though they're educated and have no opportunity to express themselves because we do not have enough opportunity for them. That's one form of diversification we could explore. Another area is we don't have a choice but to deliberately invest in enterprise development. You do not create jobs except you create businesses. Government can employ people, but how many? As far as I know right now, government has too many people working for it. Government employs too many people. If you walk into any ministry, there are people just sitting all over the place. There are jobs that one person can do that there are 3, 4 people assigned to it. For what? It's wasted resources. We're not maximizing the intellect and the abilities of our people. Because when you put people in place and you pay them for doing nothing, you're wasting their lives away, and you're wasting the talent they possess for the nation away, because you're not allowing them to think constructively and productively for the nation. But if we create opportunities for enterprise, strategically, and there's a lot going on now, because you've got all the grants and the empowerment and the money and all of that, but we need more. We need scale-ups. We need a lot of SMEs to be able to scale. We need companies that employ 5 to have the opportunity to be the companies that employ 50. And as we do that, we need a pipeline where we start the next companies that employ 2, that employ 5, because they are the ones that will have the chance to employ the 10 and the 20 and the 30. And in every nation of the world, the largest employer of labor are the SMEs, including a nation like America. Maybe about 65% are employed by small and medium-sized companies. Big companies they're obvious. You see them everywhere. How many people work there? We're the most populous bank in the nation. And that's because, we're old. We're 125 years old. We have the largest number of branches. We've had branches. There is a struggle. If we want to close one branch today, I'll get a letter from the governor, from the king, from the village, from all the important citizens of the town, and all of that, even if it's not economically viable to us. It's war for us to try and rationalize. A lot of the new generation banks have smaller networks of branches because they came after and they could afford to do that. But even with that, how many people do we employ? We employ 20-something thousand people. So if you add the entire financial services industry, that's such a major key part of the Nigerian economy, how many people work within it? You're not going to find 200,000 people that work in the financial services sector. So go across the telcos. How many people work there? What that tells you is that the big multinationals are obvious, but they're not necessarily our solution for absorbing the manpower that we're generating and the children that we're training out of school every time. So we need to deliberately encourage the creation of businesses, because except we're building businesses as a pipeline, businesses that they can start with 2 people, I don't care. Because if they start and they have the right environment and they have the tools and the infrastructure, and what is required to do that is not that much. Once they're educated in one form or the other, an enterprise education is added to it, such that we don't just go to school. Because, the other thing is this. We produce a lot of graduates with degrees that we have no need for. We have excess production in certain areas. There's no alignment to national need in our production pipeline. Because we don't have a holistic plan that says we need to produce 50,000 engineers in the next 5 years. Why? We're building a railway industry. We're building a power industry. We're building this industry. And this industry over the next 5 years will require this. And therefore, if we're signing an agreement with China or anybody else, we've worked in how they're going to train those guys for us. You're not going to bring 1,000, 2,000 people from your country to work. You can bring the top 10 people that will manage the process. But you're going to employ the next 990 Nigerians, and you're going to train them so that when that pipeline is ready, it's our people that can fit in. We need a more holistic. Our strategic economic plan and our security plan must go hand in hand. Why? People are being born every day. Population is critical to security matters. Economic development will affect the lives of everyone that is being born or children that are growing. The children of today will be ready to look for work in the next 19 years, 20 years, 15 years. We must know when, because every birth is registered to some extent. So we need to have a plan. And in making those plans, we're planning along the other indices that will affect them. Our roads don't last. Why? I know for sure, when I was serving on the board of the Sovereign Wealth Fund, that we know all the roads in Nigeria. We know how many cars ply those roads every day. It's why I know that the most viable road in the whole of this country is the Lagos-Ibadan Express Road. It takes over 1 million cars a day. Yes. And it's key to the economy of the nation because of the concentration of the port where it is, and also the mobility of trucks and everything that is moving goods across the nation. So when our rail line is working, it will reduce the pressure. That might help to keep our roads longer if we build them right as well. So I'm happy that that's a project that's fully on right now. And there's some policies we have to look at. All our roads, I know politically people say you can't toll roads. Well, can we afford it? Can we afford not to? I'd rather have a toll road that works, where I can drive safely and go between Lagos and Ibadan in 1 hour, as we used to be, than spend 7 hours going to Ibadan. On Friday, I had to go to Ibadan. I was keynote at the retreat for your state government. I'm an Ibadan girl. My father is from Ibadan. Even though most people think I'm Ondo because I'm married to an Ondo family. But I'm an Ibadan girl who is also a proud Ondo girl. Lest my people fight me. But in reality, only way I could make sure I was there for a 9 o'clock event was I left my house at 6 a.m. and got on the road. When I was a kid, we used to go to Ibadan to see my grandmother. The road was just two lane. There was no traffic. It was a joyful ride. We used to enjoy telling my dad, king of the road, if a car was ahead of us, we'll make him chase the car and overtake the car. It was fun. You would see all those tire plantation, the Odutola plantation along the way. Loads of stuff we've had in this country that we've allowed to pass away. Oil is gone. Now, what do we have? What is the asset of Kano State? What are the opportunities we can develop within the state of Kano to accommodate the people that are born, bred, or people that will migrate into Kano? What do we have in Cross River State? What is the economic activity that will service the people there, empower them, but will benefit the nation? We have different strengths as a people, and yet we have various strengths that can serve the world as well. You know, unfortunately, the world is changing. Everybody does not want other people in their countries anymore. We have to be realistic. Our people are at risk in many countries because, for whatever reason, and if you look deep within, it's resource control, it's economic issue. When people feel that they don't have, they look for a scapegoat. And they always think it's the foreigner that has come in that is taking their bread. And Nigerians are some of the hardest working people in most countries where they live. In America, the most educated people from other countries, the Nigerian group. Harvard graduated how many doctors of recent? More than 50% were Nigerians. Nigerians in America are the most educated migrant group. We're an asset in every country where we're found. But the bottom line is, we are Nigerians. The color of our skin tells the story. And sometimes, people become possessed, and they turn against people that are a blessing to them. The only reason our people feel a need to keep looking for opportunities everywhere is because we haven't fully made our own land the land where they can comfortably express themselves. A lot of things are going on to take us there now, but there's still a lot more that we need to do. And for as many of you as will be in charge of planning the security and the unity and the sustainability of this nation, it's important that as you're involved in the process of policy making, that you can rightfully tie the economic issues to the security issues. If you go to a town, it's like going to a VGC or Ikoyi. Have you seen them demonstrate before? They all have excess food. It's true. When people are comfortable, they don't fight. There's no war in a land where there's plenty. Of course, except you're dealing with ideologies and all of that. That's where the education as well comes in. We have a lot of work to do. We must look for every new area of opportunity that will empower people. The world is changing. Technology is a major tool, and we must find the opportunities within it in planning our economic development to use it as a tool to take our people off the unemployment line and poverty, and see how we use every tool at our disposal to create development for our people. I love this country, and every day I pray that we will get it right. Every day I pray that I will not have to worry about going to any part of this country, because this is our country, every single one of us. Like I told you at the beginning, my mother is Cameroonian. I think at some time they felt like they were Nigerians. And when I was a kid, my dad used to take us in the car and drive us around in what we used to call know your country trips. He would take us from town to town. We would sleep in, maybe we'll sleep in Warri, and the next time we'll sleep in Oron, we'll sleep in Calabar. That's how I got to know some part of Nigeria. He just wanted us to have a feel for our country. My father's first job coming from the UK was to work for UAC Farms in Minna. So part of my primary school was in Minna in Niger State. One of my sisters was born in Kaduna. Because we were living in Minna, and the medical facility, the best medical facility then, in 1969, was in Kaduna. It was the nearest big city to us, in Minna. That's the country of my dream, where my children are curious about the terrain of the country, where they can be tourists within their own land without fear, where they can have a business idea that the right location for it is in Kutu Wenji, and they would not have to think there's a reason why they shouldn't go there to make that investment. I don't have to come from any part of this land to invest in it, as long as it's called Nigeria. And that's part of how we will develop our nation. When there's free mobility of manpower and resources across the land. When the people who stand to benefit from turning us against each other are punished for doing it, in a way that they will understand that the nation is bigger than their personal ambition. When it counts, that the unity of our nation is our strength, and that the diversity of our talents is what makes us strong. That we all bring different value to the table. That the northern guy is strategic, he's quiet, but he's right thinking. That he has value that he brings to the table. That the entrepreneurial spirit of the Igbo guy is an asset to us. It is not a liability. And that his ability to move around the country will only create enterprise development. When I served in Gumel, in Kano, but our camp was in Gumel. The only people from other tribes that were traders in Gumel were Igbo boys. So as a matter of fact, the Igbos will benefit from a united Nigeria because they're very mobile across the country and they're enterprising enough to find a business anywhere. I'm the chairman of a bank that has a branch or an agent in every local government in this country. For us to remain as a united force supporting the development of this nation, we must be free to do business in every aspect of every area of this nation. I must not be afraid to send my team from any of my factories or to service security doors in everywhere where there's a branch of a bank. Sometimes my heart is here when my team are moving around. That stifles economic development. So the role of security and stability is key to economic development. So in choosing your topic, you are right thinking. They work hand in hand together as Siamese twins. Without peace and stability, economic development is hindered. It cannot work. So I hope that as a matter of policy, when economic plans are being made, security plans are matched with it. That at every table where we're deciding how we want to move economically, that there is a security team that is looking at how do we provide the right security for this economic plan to be activated. Because without it, it won't happen. And I know many people, I know friends right now that won't travel outside of Lagos to Ibadan. Why? Because they're afraid. Kidnapping and stuff like that. What does that mean? Why should I be worried to go to Ondo, or go to Akure, or go to Kano, or go to Kaduna, or go to Uyo? It's my country. I want to be able to use my talent in every corner of it. When we send our children for youth service, do you know what it gives us? A chance for our children to find out the opportunities in those areas where they're sent to. But if the areas are not open or safe for them to then decide to use their talent to help that neighborhood, we lose the value of it. We've wasted the whole investment in the NYSC if we don't. Thank you very much.